Good evening, everybody. System Chalk here with the 189th episode of our first YouTube run through the House of Light expansion to Book of Hours, playing as the Archaeologist. Our goal for today, opening up the sealed vault. We'll be doing that with the help of Mrs. Kill. We've also got a couple of books on the way. Well, when I say books, so one of them is a film, one of them's a phonograph, one of them is a book. And then we're going to have to wait for those before we can commit some more things to the Tree of Wisdom. Excuse me. We're going to have to wait on those before we can commit things to the Tree of Wisdoms. But what I think I might do, because I originally wanted to do Ithistry and couldn't at the end of the last stream, I'll maybe do Ithistry and then one more. And I mean, if we have opportunities to do more, I'll follow through. But in this case, we don't need to do a session dedicated to committing things to the Tree of Wisdoms, given that I've got a couple of other priorities right now. Now, at some point, I should probably consider going to Crowcross Sands and the moor and such, but I'm probably going to settle for I think I'm going to settle for focusing on vegetables and basically I'll level everybody up. I'll get everything that I can done first, and then anything we have left over will be spent on the sands and such. And that's mostly just because I know for the most part I'm going to be getting stuff from all of that. And so I'm out of room. I'm trying to I don't think I can say I'm decluttering, but I'll at least sort of slow down the rate at which we accumulate things. All right, eagerly we anticipate our work. So next up, we don't really need this, but just to give me peace of mind, we'll proffer a tool. I can lend my assistants something to help, increasing their abilities. And then the Yellowing newspaper. It's dated the year that Hush House was abandoned. Nothing's history when it first happens. And that's just to get the occult scrap back. We use that to read Tower Rises, which will be giving us a little bit of a hint towards a... oh, sorry, I thought I was getting grapes with that. But yeah, I think I would expect, based off of some of the things that we're reading, I would expect 2 treasures of the house before too long. The Geminiad Volume 2, a fragile manuscript illuminated with twin shapes of sad and luminous beauty, and with all the phases of the moon. It might be as old as the 7th century, but the language seen is much older. The cover is dark and exotic leather with a smooth, almost chitinous surface, decorated with jasper. The pages outline the 7 bloody natures of the daughters of Lagia, those corrupted immortals who gave birth to children in defiance of the laws of the upper heaven, who devoured them in obedience to the hour's punishment, and who have been left outside the law. The second volume of the Geminiad suggests that these 7 corrupted immortals have been accorded the privileges of names of the witch and sister, or perhaps the sister and witch. It reminds us that the twins unite what is apart, and that the crime of the sky is, in some sense, a supreme joining, and it speaks at length about the sadness of the 7, and the sadness of mothers whose children are forever lost, and far worse than lost. Okay, so we got a satisfaction for trouble, 2 pentiments and precursors, and I think the satisfaction's getting a little crowded here. Yes. I don't recall if we had an overflow for that. We do not. Okay, well, here's what we'll do. We're bound to rearrange the library at some point. I'm not so sure I want to do another book right now. Maybe. But let's focus on the current tasks. So, the Admonitory Automata Project. Footage of experimental devices under development in the Kukurbit under Governor Collar's supervision. The admonitory automata are nasty little things of spring and wire, but they all have merry faces of painted tin. The last item shown is a prototype towards something called a condignator, which Collars says proudly will allow a prisoner to elaborate their own punishment. He hastens to add that he hopes in the coming era punishment will be an entirely obsolete concept. So, Lockworks and Clockworks for our trouble. And Foresight. I'm pretty sure we get Revelation from the open head. I'm actually willing to take a look. Alright, so I do want to start making some progress on the pentiments and precursors. I think in this case, let's do... This is a bit of a tough one for me because clearly Inks of Power is one of the ones that I want to prioritize here, but I'm already going to put quite a bit into it. Let's do one to pentiments and precursors, and then we'll do one to Inks of Power. So we've got the satisfaction already. Unfortunately, the rest doesn't really work. So let's say we'll put a Tryst in, and I will get we'll get a Fear. I'm trying to remember where we'd... I think it's the Keys of Night. Let's also do a Gossip. Okay, so that's 3, and then a 4th Scale or Grail. Alright, now for Lockworks and Clockworks, this is again a question of what's the lowest knock or sky that I have. So looks like Door and Wall is a candidate. Okay, Door and Wall and Strings and Songs. So we can put the Foresight there. Probably something with... Actually, we can rely on... yeah, I'm pretty sure I can rely on the phonograph. I need one more. I'm actually a little short on options. Let's see what happens when I do Kukurbit Prisoner Records. Alright, I think that will get us by for now. I should probably also put something towards the sky, but let's see what... At this point I should probably see what the end results of the other readings are. Again, we have the full day ahead of us, so I don't have too much to worry about. And then some of this is just experimentation, so I don't think the revelation will do anything, but if it's not revelation, then obviously I'll reevaluate. Okay, so with Mrs. Kill, we've got the Newman, so I think it's just the Sacrament Callicite at this point. Back in the Dawn period, the Sisterhood of the Triple Knot used this in the rites of the Red Grail. I can offer my assistant something to drink. This will increase their aspects. They'll also be glad of the refreshment. And then that's it. It's really just a question of whether or not we wanted to generate memories for us or open up the vault, but in this case, opening the vault is the higher priority. Okay, the Key of Night, the deliberations leading to a manifesto of the Worms of a Scale as recorded around 1900 in the bar Vienna in the cellar of the Hotel Ciervo in Noon. The Worms, all of whom use grandiose nom de guerre like Citizen Knife and the Midnight Pilgrim, agree that all previous iterations of their movement have been feckless and treacherous, and agree that the return of the pre-human hours, the gods from stone, is the true way to end the tyranny of eternity. The Worms identify the Wheel, the Tide, the Flint, Sulochana, the Spider Door, the Excellency Nathobasis, and Wickle Inextinguishable as the 7 necessary pentiments that must be returned to every history through the propaganda of the deed. This is an eccentric list and clearly a compromise. The process of thrashing it out clearly exhausts all the participants who don't specify the necessary deed beyond a vague reference to the loopholes. The Open Head, Ilse Bischoff's hallucinatory quasi-documentary notionally about the Greco-Turkish War of the previous decade. A hammer-armed Turk and a sword-armed Greek pursue each other through the Pindus, setting traps for each other, robbing peasants, chalking insulting graffiti on walls. The tone is notionally anti-war, but any scholar of the invisible arts would recognize the Edge Hour subtext and the Hyksos messages in the graffiti. The sword wielder methodically fills a church with candles, lights each one, strips again to the waist to reveal his terrible scars. His chest somehow swings open like a cupboard door to reveal a blood-drenched book, and the film ends. The Queens of the Rivers, a surreal contemporary play by the enigmatic Monica Medina, in which the Queens of the Rivers are murdered one by one. The Queen of the Vistula is poisoned, the Queen of the Dnieper chokes on a fishhook, the Queen of the Tagus is burnt alive. The culprit, it transpires, is the audience. The surviving queens are directed to execute whatever audience members do not escape. A surprisingly lucid epilogue suggests that the correspondence of river names with historical events does provide clues to secret histories behind our own. On Imperfections, Pomander, Lightsmith, and Lantern Long describes the process of transinhabitation, which he calls a manifestation of imperfection. Lantern Long lack bodies and so cannot normally leave the mansis, but they can steady glint in the physical world by establishing a road of glass. Pomander notes with disgust that the order of Long called the Obliviates refer to it as scrying, which he considers a debased term. Pomander explains the benefits of transinhabitation, that a Lantern Long can affect the senses and thoughts of those nearby, that they can even enter their spirits, and that they can employ the senses of those inhabited to experience again the scent of blossom and season. This seems to be what interests him the most. He insists that a Lantern Long should only ever inhabit a mirror of silver, not silvered glass, but he declines to explain why. The Kukurbit Prisoner Records, 1928, account by Governor Collar's private secretary of interventions and experiments in the last years of the Kukurbit prison, focusing particularly on the hill children, wild wood things that have found a shape in the physical world. Something called a Singlefoot, a horned mountain dweller, is brought back from some kind of embassy to the Grove of Green Immortals. Collars expresses his irritation that Gervinus Van Loren refuses to assist in its containment. The Singlefoot somehow conjures an earthquake that cracks the tower and enables its escape. Collars determines that it should not have been permitted to dream while kept beneath the earth. It had access to sufficient scale aspect to use its arts of hill and hollow to develop an old moment into an earthquake name. He mandates above-ground confinement for all hill children prisoners in the future. The intimations of skin, fiendishly complex, weirdly distorted illustrations of Congress and anatomy by the haunted visionary painter Niels Frederick Malsker. Malsker illuminates the evolutions of the Grail with unfortunate clarity. It seems that a lovely who consumes an ivory becomes an ivory. A lovely who consumes a thirstly becomes a thirstly. A lovely who consumes a name of another hour might take its place. In the penultimate illustration, a lovely grapples with a fungoid knot that can only be a name of the crowned growth. The lovely's mouth and other portals gape wide, and the growth name is already partially engulfed, but it seems that Malsker couldn't bring himself to illustrate the result, and the final illustration is only a scrawled, bloated obscurity. Here we go. A tower rises. The phonograph is packaged in glossy card, the bright pink of a dog rose, with the words "A tower rises" in 9 languages on both sides. There is no identifying information at all, or no other identifying information at all. A recording of uncertain origin, inexplicably compelling poetry recorded by a speaker with a high, sweet voice that scales up beyond human hearing in the language called Vac, which probably isn't spoken by more than a few dozen living scholars. The poem speaks of the wheel that turns, the coil that turns, the tide that returns, egg that returns. It speaks of a cloven sky, an opened heart, a dream of glittering eyes. Speaks lastly of its own conclusion, when it might be spoken in dreams before the deep door by a messenger of histories. So that, A Tower Rises and A Tower Falls contain a couple of hints in terms of what we might want to consider. So confounding parable, and 3 preliminary meter lessons, which won't be the easiest things to get rid of, but we can put some things on a level playing field. Fixing and mending. There's not much work on offer in Brandkrug, but I can find 6 pence worth of odd jobs. Alright. So before we go any further, let's take care of the leveling that I wanted to do. So first thing we'll do is bring pentiments and precursors up. It seems fair to put that one... Oh, what am I doing? So yeah, I guess it doesn't really matter. So satisfying to have come so far. Improve the skill to level 5. Nope. And then... I believe I said I was going to put this towards Ink of Powers, so I should probably get the Gossip and the... I guess we'll do another Fear. And I only need 2 for those because it's a level 2 skill. Down to the Grushans. This has boosted their aspects appropriately. Alright, so again, it's tempting to use Mrs. Kill to generate some memories, but in this case, I'm happy enough to just open up the sealed vault. A heavy marble door sealed with red wax. A triple lock chased with silver. Pluck grapes from the vine. So when I can... Actually, we've got the talk verb open now, so let's have a chat with Pleading Tuppence. Pluck, pluck. So that ought to cover me for the... That'll cover me for the chickens, and then we will have a chat with the Stimfling to get the... Well, we won't actually get the memory back, but get the option for the memory back. Now, if I want, I can... one of the things that I'll be doing is trying to level up strings and songs. So at this point, I could be trying to generate some heart and sky memories. The skill is now level 5. Its power aspects have also increased. But again, the aim here is to try and take things a little easier while we... while we're in this in-between spot. So Lockworks and Clockworks, we're going to level up door and wall. Right. I wasn't thinking. So I need a knock and forge. In a pinch, I can do... Yeah, I guess it has to be the occult scrap. A little bit of a shame, but we can always get that back. Okay, so I mean, this is one of the nice, this is one of the nice opportunities that comes up. Now I only need the 3, so these should be for the ink. So this one will be straightforward. I think in this case we'll just go for the music. So Peruvian Diaries. Skeleton Songs. And Unhatched Hymns. I'm effectively ignoring the preliminal meter here, but that's partly partly because I know some of this is going to wind up back with the Inks of Power. Actually, I could also put the Storm towards one of these as well. All right, The Sun's Lament, the first volume of the meditations of Abbot Thomas of the Abbey of the Black Dove. The thorn-beaked crows took my sight from me in justice for my crimes, but though I lost my sight, I found my light. Abbot Thomas speaks of the breaking of his oaths to his sword brother Trygeave and to the Lord of Scars that he served before he came to the Abbey. He writes of the power of both oath bonds and considers the means and morality of their sundering. Three Flowers Hath the Tree. Ernestine Peterhans records her observations of the growths of the trees and flowers around the isle and the omens and portents she attempts to draw from them, particularly the yew tree in Earl Bryan's meadow, whose flowerings are sometimes eccentric. Ernestine observes that in years where the tree flowers black, troubling secrets arise. When it flowers red, war and fires follow, and that no de Wulfhere has ever been born in a year when it flowers white. Ernestine attempts to use the tree's growth to advantage in her business affairs, but it fails. She evidently is very concerned when Hendrik de Wulf's grandson Giles runs off with a pale trollop Hafren in a year when the tree flowers white. She begins to fear that she entirely misinterpreted all the relevant omens. She is deeply concerned for the continuation of the de Wulf line and prays for Giles' return. As I used to say in my youth, the day is done and so am I, but I've earned my pay. The skill is now level 5. Its power aspects have also increased. Okay, so Inks of Power. I'm no expert, but I'm no dabbler either. Part of the element of the soul selection here is just to make sure that I have options at the end of the day. So we have a few things ahead of us. We have got the Shiridic Book of Suns, a radically different text from any of the other versions of the Book of Suns, attributed to Hagar, Queen of Shur, Mother of Wolves. This book houses a Numen, a truth so powerful it can perhaps believe itself. We have the Turquoise Hand, a calligraphic manual of Ramsund, which employs as exemplar text Farid Udin's Conference of the Birds. This book houses a Numen, also pentiments and precursors, and then we have an uncatalogued book, which we can take care of right away. So we don't have enough time to fully read one of these texts, but I think at this point we'll take the Shuritic Book of Suns. I'll read it. Maybe what I will do is I will commit some things to the Tree of Wisdoms first, just so I don't lock myself into an extended period without the skill. And of course, we won't have the element of the soul overnight, but again, we were taking it easy. We were quite comfortable sort of using a bunch of elements of the soul just to earn money, so I'm not too fussed about the current pace. Also, I should, be describing the room. Did the Curia of the Isle construct this vault? They were not long. Most of them were not long. So they were not the Obliviates, that society of unseen immortals bound by 3 oaths. But this vault does seem to reference the oath called the Silver Chain, which forbade men to lie with women, or women with men. For what may come is not always a crime of the sky, yet that is a furious danger. So, I've got a few things I want to do here. I'm definitely going to read the Book of Suns. Right, sorry, we're going to do that, but we're going to do that after we commit the lessons. Okay. Let's do what we tried to do before, which is finish off Ithistry, and then we'll get as far as we can with Illumination. So, bells and braziers. That resonance which lingers from the hammer's touch. And just a reminder here, the bright Ithistry, the bright arts of alchemy, metallurgy, pyrotechnics, sometimes called the art that alters. The chime. In the right mortal's hand, the right tool can become the weapon that ends a war. This is a high purpose of Ithistry. And then finally, at the top level, we've got glazier and lightsmithing. Break a window, what have you made? A way? A new light? A weapon? Natalia Brulot. The Red Flower's lesson. A lesson from Ithistry. Fire reveals, smoke conceals. This is the lesson of the red flower of the watchman's tree. Even the most dangerous of knowledge is no danger at all when it is given to the fire. Okay, Illumination. The brightest and fiercest of the bright arts, whose initiates purify themselves and the world around them. So this is one that we're going to go from the very bottom with. We've got 2 languages already. But here we've got Watchman's Paradoxes. The amber preserves and is preserved by light, that to hatch is not to die, that the sun. There is a place behind the world called the Mansus. Deeds that would be impossible in the world are inevitable there. The watchman, who knows all the ways of the Mansus, also knows how to make these deeds possible in the waking world. From light. Our dreams are shadows cast by the watchman's light, so we perceive him even in our shadow. This is illumination. Applebright Euphonies. Breath is the temptation of the soul, pleasures and insights that the church would call the secrets, the sisterhood, the mysteries, and the bureau unsanctioned. What may be true? Calyptra is the law that requires secret knowledge to be forgotten, except in the libraries of the Watchman's Tree. The number of the hours of Calyptra is 3, and we do not trust the 3rd hour, though we heed her. This paradox is a matter of illumination. Meniscate Reflections. Without is purified, within is erased. What could be? Dream of a city of perfect balance. There can be no perfect balance outside dream. Meditate on the hour named Meniscate, whose light is cast in dreams, but we see even in the wake. Build the city in the heart of her domain, in the house of the moon. Be illuminated. Purifications and exaltations. No one ever truly wants to be truly changed. Azoth and Refulgen are justly feared, but no one who has been changed would choose to go back. George Collars. The hours. Never underestimate the hour named Meniscate. Foolish adepts deride her as an hour of vanity. What do they think defines the hours? Light purifies, light exalts. Preliminal meter. 9 modes, 9 horizons. The subtle rhythms of words which open ways. Of keys. One of us passed the summit. One may not. 2 of us sought the lantern. 2 chose flight. The 7th rarely named, but not forgot. This is illumination. Disciplines of the scar. To master boundaries through their determination, the scar marks wisdom and regrets. One is often born from the other. The scar. The mansis is the fortress of dream where the true hours rule, and nowhere is the scar beneath it where the nowhere hours lair. Without the hours above, that scar would be an open wound. So the bright arts teach us. And finally, transformations and liberations. Forge and Moth are less different than we think. Every change is in some way a release. From light. Even in the sun's division was if even the sun's division was a plan, then once we complete that plan, we'll bring the second dawn and unite the sun. It won't be easy, but what great work ever is? Illumination might show the way. Alright, and I will collect my prizes. And then, while we're here, so we've got the Grunwald Pavilion, we get to pick one of 2. So, how is it going with the malignities from the Grunwald business? So, add a visitor to enable that visitor's choice. We've got Agdistis and Eason. So, I don't know which one I'm going to follow through with, and I don't believe I have a preference at the moment. So we'll maybe see what both of them provide me. That will be, again, something that is sort of down the road. We've got a few things that I want to do that don't involve inviting people. But for the next stream, we've got a few, or sorry, I say stream, but it's not really a stream. For the next video, we've got a few things that we want to do. So we've taken care of this vault. We don't need to worry about Mrs. Kill for I don't think ever, although obviously we can still invite her for things like salons. So at some point we will invite Reverend Timothy to deal with the sealed vault. I'm not expecting too much trouble with that, but again, we do need to give up the talk verb in order to do it. I do still have some remaining lessons, so we'll finish off the Lockworks and Clockworks, but we're going to need to find something to do with the preliminal meter, and it can't all just be Inks of Power. I'll maybe bring that up to the 4 just so everything's on the same playing field. But when it comes to the Knock and the Rose, I believe we are actually going to be moving on things like... Actually, you know what? One thing that might make it straightforward, just looking at how things are organized, I could probably do Solutions and Separations, Door and Wall, and Inks of Power. That would bring Inks of Power up to the same level as like all the lower level stuff, while not committing stuff to sort of the level 5 and 6, which is obviously quite high. So I will put some of that in motion now. Yeah. I think that works. And then the intention definitely is to keep reading these texts. So I don't have any strong view of which one I should read first, although maybe Red Book of Brittany would be nice to get out of the way just so I can use the Inks of Power. But my main aim is going to be on catching up with the Newman texts. That was actually one thing that I wanted to do. I'm going to take this in a slightly different direction here. So we've got Deep Mandaic. We've got one sky to work with now. Alright, never mind then. I think I do need to go for the... Well, no, we can use Bells and Brazier. Oh, nuts. Okay. Astrolabe it is. There we go. So Bells and Braziers is already committed, so I don't need to worry about overdoing or locking up some of the skills. So there we go. This is one of the things, I'm sure this came up earlier, but one of the things I really do like about committing the skills are that out of all of them, you get two different, potentially even contradictory answers based on where you commit them in the tree. And the way that I've always liked to imagine this is that you have got sort of the basic, so you've got memories, right? Something temporary. You have skills, your ability to do things, and you're able to develop your skills with practice. And that will come through sort of taking a diverse range of memories. The further out from the frontier, the more you have to draw on to kind of push that frontier of possibility out. But the final form that it takes, where you take your skills and you put them into the Tree of Wisdoms, that's really where you start having a worldview. That's where you see these various skills and you see them as a reflection of something, right? You have two principles behind them, but one of them is going to be more dominant. One of these ideas is going to be sort of driving it's going to be driving the action for you. And this is, this could be anything from, if you've read The Birth of Tragedy, this could be like Apollonian versus Dionysian. This could be, I've never been big on these terms, but I hear in a writers group that I'm in, Planner and Pantser. There's a lot of people who, in describing the things that they do, and to be clear, like these would be, experts, people who are well respected in their field, describing what they do. And, if you're someone who does this stuff, sometimes you will hear people describe someone who can maybe make works that you love. And what they are describing is completely foreign to you in terms of, maybe not completely foreign, but like it's very, very different from how you do things. And it's not necessarily that they're right or wrong, right? Because you can have, if we believed every single, I'll just take writing as an example. If we believed every single writer who also wrote down writing advice or talked about how they come up with their stuff, whether it's nonfiction, fiction, there's all sorts of different writing out there. We wouldn't be able to get anywhere, right? It'd just be contradictory. It'd be a mess. And so to a certain extent, that's kind of what I like to imagine is going on here in the Tree of Wisdoms. However, I would also say that there's also that side of it where, you see this almost as alchemy or some of these other tasks, which is they may be doing a certain thing, but it's also a reflection of a process, of sort of self-purification or I guess it depends on the specific discipline. But yeah, it's a fun one. I really do like sort of how the the game sort of progresses from the memories up to the elements of the soul that you get from the Tree of Wisdoms and sort of what, at least in terms of my head, what all of that means. So. But on that note, we will have even more to look at in the next broadcast. But until then, thank you very much for watching, and take care.